Hi, and welcome to this episode of Unboxing Women, where we explore why women in business are often called such a bitch. My name is Maika Rose, and with me is my friend Dana Rexx, and we are both independent recording artists and singer-songwriters based in Europe. You can listen to us on YouTube and on your favorite podcast platform. So, today's topic is comedians and how they deal with feminism and misogyny and the likes. So, Dana, you had a couple of thoughts on this. What have you found out so far?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of stand-up comedy. And there's basically a lot of stigma and taboo still around subjects like sex and disabled people, racism even, or rather how not to come across as a racist, or even how to interact with people from the LGBTQ community or stuff like that, in general in our society. And I think comedy creates a safe place to actually voice certain emotions or opinions that in other situations would not be acceptable to talk about. So that's why I really like comedy, because you can actually just say what you're thinking. And how it is, and that's just what makes it so funny, is because it's true. So it just opens up an honest conversation about things, which I really like. I don't know if you watch Live at the Apollo a lot on the BBC.
I don't watch it when it's live, but I have watched a lot of clips on YouTube. I really like Jack Whitehall and Michael McIntyre and stuff like that. Really British people. But yeah.
Yeah, I do too. And I mean, I've also seen how it used to be kind of a white male show. And they really did an effort in, booking, like half of the time they have women now. They also obviously have black people, Indian people, and people from all kinds of different places and ethnicities, and it's really interesting to see different kinds of humor coming from different cultural backgrounds. You have black comedians, for example, talking about white privilege, what it actually looks like from their side, which is super interesting to know. But where else can you really get into that conversation? You have Islamic comedians talking about terrorism, women slagging off having kids and how to raise them, or discussing marriage, which usually, these are topics
discussing slut shaming.
Yeah. So all of that stuff is really interesting to watch, because obviously all comedians are entertainers as well, and they make art, in my opinion. And art, is it a reflection of the community that you're living in, or does the community reflect the art? That's the whole question as well. So I find it really interesting to see.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was going to say something.
Well, about women in comedy, it hasn't been such a long time.
Yes. I don't know if you've watched this, but I really, really like this series. I think it's called The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
No, I haven't seen it yet, but I know of it.
Yeah, it's a Prime, Amazon Prime, I think exclusive or something. I don't know, but it's amazing. I love it. She's so funny. And it just basically goes through the story of Mrs. Maisel, who is a young housewife. It's, I think it's in, no
spoilers.
It's in New York.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in New York. So it's based in New York. They're Jewish, and she has not just being a woman and being a housewife and being a mother, but also being Jewish. So there's a lot of things that kind of mix in her comedy, and it's really, really funny and interesting to see, because she's one of the first female comedians in that space. So I don't know in how far this is based off of something real, but it probably is.
Oh, so it's a show about a female comedian, basically.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Okay. I didn't know that. I'll definitely watch it. that's interesting because comedy in series and on TV is like this whole other thing as well with women. I remember, I'm a big fan of the show Allo Allo, which obviously doesn't always paint women in like the best light, with Rene and his wife having this really, hate relationship.
Well, I don't know what that show is, so it's kind of
Allo Allo is where it's a British series about a French town during World War II. So you have the Germans that are there, and it's British actors actually, and so they're like. The funny thing of it is that they're kind of doing a French accent and doing a German accent and all of that stuff, and that just makes it hilarious.
Right.
But Rene, every time his wife comes in, because Rene is the owner of the cafe, and he has so he has a mistress, the girl that works at the cafe. She changes during the series quite a lot, and every time he has a relationship with her, and so he has his wife also who's there, and every time she comes in and she's like, why are you hugging this girl, and he's like, you stupid woman. So I don't really think that it's very woman friendly, and a lot of the series from that time, I think it was, did they make it in the late 80s, early 90s? I don't know when exactly they started it. I think it has like 10 series or 10 years. It went for over 10 years. And, but all of those, series from the 80s and 90s, I think women weren't very, it was very stereotypical. When you were playing the woman in a series like that, you were like the stereotype woman. Like you were dumb or blonde, or, look at Married with Children. It's the same thing. Yeah. The women in there are just not, they're portrayed very, very badly.
They don't have a personality. Yeah, they're just mothers.
Yeah.
It's not like you can be a mother and be like 10,000 other things. No, you're a mother. That's all you are. So yeah.
So I think we've come a long way with series on Netflix and Prime and everywhere being, with casting a lot of women, and even sometimes all women, or like
and
the
also
headline.
Casting internationally as well. Because like actually getting German people to play German people, or actually getting French people to play, because you can, the world is so global right now. It's not an issue actually casting people who actually speak the language. You can't imagine how much well, you probably can imagine, but it frustrates me to no end when I hear in all sorts of movies there's somebody speaking German, and I'm just sitting there and I'm looking at the, sorry, I just touched my mic. I was so excited about this. I'm looking at the subtitles because I cannot understand what they are saying, and I am German.
And you can hear in their German that they're speaking such a big English accent that you're like, okay, they just learned the line.
And it's all like, and I'm just like, that's not what German sounds like.
No, exactly. I know. I was thinking about that the other day, this week. What was I watching? I was watching something with Germans. It was German. I don't remember. I was watching Queen of the South as well. Were there Germans in there? I don't remember. But in any case, you could hear that one was actually a German and the other one was American.
Yeah, you can so tell. But yes, big kind of sidestep off of our original topic. So circling back to comedians. Right?
Yes, stand-up comedians, yes.
Yes, stand-up comedians. Because I think it was... Jesus Christ. Today, I've talked a lot today, so it's a lot of things kind of going through my head. But I think it's really incredible how stand-up comedians they take so big risks.
Oh yeah, they do.
Like,
yeah.
You need to know you don't know the audience before you're there. So you have to kind of work on the fly and see what actually fits this audience.
Mm-hmm.
And then B, you've got like, what if you've got more men in the audience and you make feminist jokes that maybe don't land, maybe they land exactly the same.
I don't know.
Maybe not.
I think it's more cultural. I think, what works in the UK, for example, will also work like in like Germany and Belgium and stuff like that. But if you go like to maybe more Mediterranean places or obviously to Asia or Africa, I think that's where it changes. So I think when they go on tour, on international tours, I think that's when they really need to think about the show that they have and if that's going to translate in other people's cultures.
True.
Because I mean, I was watching the other day. I was watching, what's her name? Shavu V. Is it Shavu? I don't know her name anymore. It's Mrs. V. And so she's a British comedian from Hindu descent, and she actually her show is about the differences between Hindu people and British people when they raise their children. So or like more European standards where we're like, no, you can go sit on the naughty step and like things like that, while apparently, well, she says, so I'm believing her, that Hindu people, Hindu women are more, they shout at their children and they're just more assertive, and they talk a lot about, they make them very responsible at a very young age. For example, I'm just going to give an example. They use death. They use death, which is a bit morbid. It's like, did you do this? What, you want me to die? Like things like that, like use that kind of fear to control them, which I'm sure also happens here. What, are you trying to kill me?
Yeah, true. It's something you say.
Yeah, it's I mean, expectations about women and their kids or pregnancy or stuff like that is very rigid still. I have the impression, even in Western civilization, I don't want children. For various reasons, and I regularly get a lot of heat from other women about this, and how can you be so selfish, or how can you not, use your uterus for what it's made for, and stuff like that, from other women, not men. Really.
Yeah.
So it's just that kind of thing that I think comedy just opens that conversation up and really tells it like it is. And that's why it's funny as well.
Yeah. It's interesting because there was a similar argument made by the stand-up comedian Jen Brister. And she was doing a TED Talk on how we raise our boys, right? Because she's got twin boys. She's in a partnership with another woman, and she said she's the other mum. So her partner is the biological mum, and she's the other mum, right? And she was talking about how when they were expecting, everybody was like, oh, so what are you having? And then her partner would usually say, well, we're having twin boys. And she'd be like, men would respond with, oh, well, that's nice, isn't it? That's great. And then women would respond with, oh, twin boys, you've hit the jackpot. That's so great because boys are so easy, I mean, I have one of each, and oh my God, my girl, she drives me crazy. Boys are better.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
She said she got this so often from women. Boys are better.
That's so weird, because if ever I would need to have a child, if I would be forced to have a child, I would want a girl because, oh my God, it's so much easier. I know what to expect. I wouldn't want a boy. I wouldn't want a boy at all. I wouldn't want a boy at all.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
It is interesting. I didn't expect that. So maybe I'm the freak. I don't know.
No, I don't think so. I think it's, I mean, no. Had to think about it for a while there.
A little silence there from Maika. Well, I'm, you know, I don't know. What would you want? Would you want a boy or a girl?
Well, I don't want a single child.
Exactly.
I don't know if I want.
Mean,
Yeah,
if I
if I had to, I think I'd want a girl just because I know girls.
Yeah.
And I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think it would matter, but I think it also depends on whether you're raising the child alone or not.
Maybe.
And I think the thing is, raising a child is a lot of responsibility anyway. So it's like if you have a girl, you know, there's the responsibility of raising them in a way that they are, you know, they don't fall into that trap of, oh, I need to apologize for everything and it's all my fault, which is what society tells them, you know, and oh, you can't do all of this. This is also something that Jen said. She said, when we raise boys, we tell them, don't worry about that. Don't do that. Mummy will do all of that for you. You just focus on doing everything you can. And then with girls, it's more like, you look fat in that, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's a different type of, it's not even conscious. It's again, the subconscious of society, and it's something you really actively have to work on.
Yeah.
So also that boys are allowed to show emotion, you know, that it's okay to go cry and you don't have to put them in a boxing ring to fight out their aggression or whatever, you know. And also she talked about, this is really interesting. She talked about consent being taught very wrong at a very young age. Because you remember, I don't know if you remember this or if anybody else listening to this remembers, when you were a kid, like it's taught, oh, go give auntie blah 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 a kiss. You know, no, don't kiss her on the cheek, kiss her on the lips. You know, it doesn't matter if she doesn't, you know, you don't want to. You go give auntie a kiss.
Yeah.
You know? It's not something every family does, obviously, but a lot of families do still do this. Because with kids, it's like cute. You get a kiss and that's fine. But it's like, what if the kid doesn't want to kiss that person? And then they get a completely wrong idea about consent because it doesn't matter if you want it or not. And then it doesn't matter if they want it or not. So it's just, yeah.
Yeah. I had that problem as a kid. I didn't, well, maybe as a teen, I don't know. At one point I was like, no, I don't like hugging. I don't like kissing. I don't like being very close to other people, even when it's my own mother. You know, I'm not like the huggy person. Well, she's not either, but as a kid, you kind of say, you know, you kind of get into that habit of in the morning you give each other a kiss to say good morning, and then when you go and sleep you have to kiss everybody good night. And if there's guests in the house and it's your sleeping time, you have to kiss all the guests as well, you know. And yeah,
I never had to do that.
Well, it's just, I don't know, yeah, it's you give everybody a kiss, and I just at one point I was just so sick of having to kiss everybody, not that they're guests all the time, but even like my mom and my stepdad, I was like, no. And I think I was 13 or something. I was being very assertive, and I kind of said it a little bit too loudly because I was getting the nerve to kind of say that I didn't like this, and I kind of shouted, I don't want to kiss anymore. I'm sick of kissing. Let's not do this ever again. And they looked at me like, what the hell? And then I said good night and I stomped off to bed, and they were probably like, what the hell is going on?
They were probably just like bloody teenagers.
Yeah, maybe. And I was very shocked of myself because of my volume, but that was just because I was scared to say it, but I needed to say it, so I did.
But I mean, that's kind of what it is, though. I think maybe the kissing is also because I don't know if in Belgium, do you kiss people hello, like French?
Well, not as much. Not as much. So yeah, that's a good point. There's a big difference between the Dutch part and the French part of Belgium. So in the Dutch part, men don't kiss. So even friends, they shake hands to say hello. So for example, if I would invite you to a barbecue with your boyfriend, then we would kiss hello just once, and they would shake hands, and I would kiss your boyfriend on the cheek as well. So the girls and the boys kiss, but and then and then but in and you don't kiss colleagues. You kind of come in to work in the morning and you say hello, but you don't go around kissing everybody. But in the French part, they do. So in the French part, you come in to your work and you kind of, it's expected that you go around everybody in the bloody open space and kiss everybody every morning when you come into work. So for me, that was really weird because I started working after my school. I started working in Brussels. So obviously in Belgium, you have a lot of mixing of the French part people and the Dutch part people, the Flemish and the Walloon people. And so, it was a bit shocking. It was like, why are you guys kissing me? You know, we're at work and it's a bit weird. But it just turns out that they kiss everybody. And so men kiss men as well.
Yeah, it's similar in Italy. Everybody does the two kisses. And,
they do the official too. Yeah, here it's just the one, but it's still weird. And in Holland, they kiss 3 times every time. So
I heard about that. It's crazy. But at the same time, I mean, COVID put a stop to that. But
can we leave that behind us now? Because I would be glad to not kiss.
I was just wondering, because you were saying the other day about how it was really interesting how male comedians talked about feminism. I think they have a really interesting perspective on it as well.
Yeah.
Because you were saying it was mainly because they had become fathers.
Yeah.
And now have daughters.
Yeah.
And started kind of processing that.
That was something that really came to the forefront while I was watching the last series of Live at the Apollo. And so you had every time you had like the host, and then you had a male comedian and a female comedian. And a lot of the male ones, like over and over again, they were challenging double standards. And every time they started their show with, I have kids, and then they would clap, and I have a daughter, and then they would go off and say how they realize now that they have a daughter, that how many double standards there are, and that they can suddenly see through the hypocrisy and put it on the table on stage, basically. And I found that so much more interesting. Obviously, I found the women also interesting, their standpoint. But I mean, that these men were really making a statement and going out of their way to do a show about that. I thought that was really good. Really good. I mean, comedy holds a mirror to society, right? And points out the flaws. So I just wish that outside of the stage, we would all be able to speak openly about any subject like that. It would just make understanding each other and change go so much faster. To be honest.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think the hardest bit about actually, like, comedians have worked on their scripts for a long time. So they know how to phrase things. They've put a lot of thought and effort into kind of phrasing things in a way that is non-offensive, or, it's kind of like what Graham Norton does. He compliments all of his guests and makes them feel welcome, to then insult them, to then have them laugh with him and then compliment them again so that they don't feel bad. So it's kind of like a strategy.
It is.
And that's what comedians do, right? And it's much harder in a social setting because you're just talking from your heart, and when you talk from your heart, it tends to get heated quite quickly, even though you don't necessarily want it to. So the hardest part with that for me is always when facing a statement, be it from male or female side, when facing a statement that is definitely sexist, it's not a question of whether or not I should like talk about it, like actually mention like, hey, look, that was sexist. But it's more about, oh God, here we go. You know, people react quite defensively because they think they are being attacked. And actually, it's mainly, I don't want to attack the person. I'm just trying to say, look, this is how that made me feel. So that you can understand.
Yeah, you're trying to
actually
open a conversation. I think that comedy does a lot for that, and that
exactly
like Graham Norton, like you say, going into that show as a guest that it's going to be fun and laughs, but at the same time he does do a serious interview, and he kind of weeds out maybe some things that you wouldn't really talk about otherwise. And if you put it in like this little funny environment, then people tend to be more open and actually say, that it's true, and it actually it's just funny and we should laugh with it, but that this happened. So it just makes it more acceptable, I think, to everybody. And like I was saying before, expectations about especially women's sexuality or even disabled people. I mean, I recently saw 2 disabled people who have I can't say this, cerebral palsy. So that means that they can't control their muscles and have erratic movements and can't control like their jaw and tongue. So they speak very slowly to be understood. But mentally, they're fine. They're not. This does not do anything with their intelligence. And they both did shows on Live at the Apollo, and they were so funny and great comedians in their own right. I mean, I think it's huge that disabled people, not only physical, if you're in a wheelchair, obviously you can be, I want to say a stand-up comedian, but that's evil. But a comedian... Exactly. Mind the pun. No, but I mean, they can go on stage too. That's great. But then you have this whole different level of, okay, are they disabled and are they mentally disabled or born with something? And then people go into like this whole, let's be super careful with the subject. But why would they not be able to make a career out of this in showbiz? It was amazing. For example, Rosie Jones, she's disabled with this cerebral palsy, and she's gay and has a show about masturbating and sexual fantasies. So, just the notion that disabled people also have a sexuality is just never talked about ever anywhere. And
I guess it should be obvious, but
you just don't think about it that way. And I don't know any disabled person personally, so maybe that's why I'm not maybe confronted with that, or don't have a person like that to talk to and ask them about it, because I'm always very curious and I always want to know about everything. So I have a friend who was born without an arm, for example. So obviously, the first time we met, or like the second time, I did like a Spanish Inquisition about the arm, because I'm so interested and want to know. And I'm guilty of never really having thought about sexuality of disabled people until I saw Rosie perform, So I looked her up, and she also writes for various comedy shows, apparently, on the BBC and other places. Like Have I Got News for You and stuff like that. So I think it's amazing. I think she's amazing.
Yeah. I think it's really great that well, this was the 2019 one, right?
Yes.
Because I think it's just great how big places like BBC are starting to really put an effort into diversifying their, everything.
Yeah.
But in this case, their public persona, mostly.
Mhm.
And I think that's great. But it's also like the back end. It's like Kate was saying the other day, or well, a couple of weeks ago now, how if you're doing a play about trans people, then you need trans writers and you need trans directors and you need people, trans artists. So I'd be interested to see how much they're actually doing on the back end of this, or if they're just putting up the front.
Yeah.
But either way, I mean, it's still a step in the right direction, and I think it's really great.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, just the fact that they went out of their way to, say, okay, we want these people on stage. I think it just creates an opportunity for them that
oh yeah, definitely
years ago they wouldn't have had. And I think that's definitely positive change. I mean, who else was there? Ellie Taylor talks about monogamy, or rather how silly it is, and that women also need to sow their sexual oats. Obviously, when women have had, we get called a slut, while a man who has had a lot of partners or one night stands is seen as like a successful, manly man who can get a lot of women. If you do that as a woman, oh my God, you're really.
Yeah, again, power of language. So a man is called a stud, right, or a stallion, and a woman is called a slut, or a whore, or whatever. And that's just it brings me back, the power of language. My mum, actually, I was talking to her about our last I was talking to her about the podcast episode with Kate O'Donnell, and she was saying that yes, it is very much the power of language. I remember when you were kids, you were very confused that my friend, her friend, right, her girlfriend, was a lawyer, because in German we have gendered nouns.
Yeah.
So a lawyer in German at that point was male. So you have the lawyer. The normal phrase you would use for a lawyer is der Anwalt, and der is the male. Yeah. So we were like, apparently we were like, how can she be a lawyer because it's male?
Yeah.
And
that's interesting.
We didn't understand that. And this is the power of language. And that is why I also think, and I said this last time, I think that we should not necessarily be saying we are empowering women, because women are already powerful.
Yeah.
Right? We don't need to give them power. We need to give them the space to develop that power. But
saying empowering just makes it feel like you're getting your power from somewhere else. Exactly. Somebody else is giving you the power.
It's not about taking power from somewhere. It's about showing what you have intrinsically, and showing what other people have intrinsically, and just for everybody to be able to showcase what they can do. Yeah. And I just think, it's a lot about, we have to think a lot about our language. And that in Germany, actually, we've recently started, I don't know how recent it is, but in the past couple of months, I've seen like everywhere adopting this. There started being a gendering of words. So like lawyer would be der Anwalt or die Anwältin. So we would then now say ein Anwalt in. So we do like a break and then do
the in,
like the female, the female additive to it. It doesn't really work with Anwalt that well because of the umlaut that adds in the female version. But it's we do gendering now, and I think that's great because it just adds that sort of
that's also
element.
how language evolves, right? I mean, in 10 or 15 years they don't even know that there was a time that there wasn't a female word for it. But yeah, I think on so many levels we still have a lot of work to do. So anyway, I think that's all for today. Thank you for tuning in to Unboxing Women. Be sure to connect with us on our socials, which you can find in the show notes. Oh, I need to put up the banner. I forgot the banner the last time. There you go. Send us a DM or let us know your personal experiences with the hashtag #SuchABitch. And don't forget to support your favorite artists through merch or donations. My name is Dana Rexx, and I've been chatting with Maika Rose. This is a bi-weekly show, and we will be back for you in 2 weeks' time, same place. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.